Hi, folks. Tonight we're going to go ahead and talk about Yelp, the company. And this is the first of a series that I'm planning to do on kind of a deep dive on startup companies, looking at different stages and what particular techniques or tricks they use to overcome specific market challenges, how they got to where they are, and whether they succeeded or not, because not all of them will be successes. But today we're going to start with Yelp, which may seem like an odd choice because it's obviously not a startup anymore. It's a well-established company. It's, I believe, as of this year, 21 years old. Um, but it started out as a startup, and it's a Silicon Valley tech giant. I think we could go ahead and call it a fairly sizable company. And it's one of the few Silicon Valley tech giants that, if you look at it, you can still see its roots as a startup company. A lot of the ways that Yelp still interacts with the market are very startup-y. A lot of the way the business still functions are very much as a startup. And one thing that I especially enjoy about this one as kind of a case study is it's still very recognizable as its original core business, whereas a lot of others have become giant octopuses or have eaten up other companies, and it's all gotten a little bit diluted. Yelp is still very much what it was at the very beginning. Now, for the purposes of this video and making it all sound very cool, I'm going to make it sound like all of this was just sprung out of thin air, right? Where all of this is just the way they chose to approach the market and they didn't actually learn or iterate at all. But realistically, since we're talking about startups, I do also want to be clear that I'm sure there were stumbles along the way, and a lot of the stuff was not necessarily figured out when they started. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. Founded in 2004 in San Francisco. This is a really cool article. I'm going to link to this in the description by a John Popple. Just mentioned the specific founding date, and there were two really key notes in this that I really liked about it. So first of all, it talks about how they followed an 80-20 MPF, or a market product fit. The idea being that 80% of what they did is something that already existed in the market. So clearly there was a need, clearly there was a sizable market, clearly there was room for something here, and there was a successful company to be made. And that 20 part is the part that is disruptive, that's new about Yelp versus the other competitors in the market, which at the time was something called City Search, which I have never heard of. And so obviously Yelp did something right because I've definitely heard of them. If we were to talk about the way I was always taught to kind of think about a startup's place in the market is to consider who's the 10-ton gorilla, who's the really big player in that market. And in this case, my first thought is, of course, Google reviews. I want to say that Google restaurant reviews actually started a little bit later than Yelp. And for me, for some reasons we're going to cover here about how Yelp runs, I don't think is really a competitor. Now, obviously, they have huge advantages in terms of being the map service, but and also having an enormous web traffic. But I still think that Yelp beats them out in terms of the product that it's supposed to be. So there has not been another system like Yelp that's really knocked it out of the market. It's still a strong player. It still has a remarkable presence. It's a very well established, stable company, which is very impressive. And so that's another reason I chose to talk about this. So the 80-20 MPF is one bit. Another key piece in here that I really liked. Oh, what was it? There it is. The second growth hack was making Yelp social. And that's something we're going to talk a lot in this video because that's a core part of how Yelp functions differently. And a lot of what makes it special, makes it work at all, and then also what makes it particularly valuable as an actual company. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, I mentioned it's an established company. Where does that come from? Just a very quick search. You look at the stock price. They've got a respectable stock value, good growth over the past day. Let's look at the 5 years max. It's relatively steady. They had some peaks in 2014. It's been up and down a little bit, but it's very, very even. We would call this a very stable company, especially looking at how little they were actually impacted and some of the pretty significant market downturns. So restaurants are a very stable business. Businesses across the board are very stable in general. So Yelp is a very stable, established company. There we go. Let's take a look at Yelp itself. And now, for me personally, another reason that I chose to talk about Yelp is that I'm very familiar with the company personally because I've been using it since close to when it launched, 2004, as both a reviewer and somebody who's searching for where to get lunch. Anytime I'm traveling, especially in the US, I tend to use Yelp quite a bit to go ahead and find what I want to eat or where I want to go or what I want to do. And it's really helpful. But then also, I was Yelp Elite, kind of the upper tier of the more active and more kind of polished Yelp reviewers for years. And then I also worked for Yelp for several years, and several of my friends did as well at various different capacities over different times. So really, really cool company, and one that I mean, really familiar company and one that I do kind of admire for how well they've done this. And I still do reference it a lot. So I've gone this far without even talking about what Yelp is in any level of detail. So clearly, it's a business review site. It really relies on local reviews of local businesses, although larger chains are on here. And then it is something that I'm actually going to look at it. It let's actually use it. I'm just going to look breakfast in my location. Verified device. That's new. Okay. And there's a couple of things I wanted to highlight here. Yeah, okay. So it gives you a very functional, like this layout is really good. And this is not how it started out. Yelp did not always have this kind of very nice layout, and it's really designed to be used on the Yelp app on your phone. So you get a combination of the map, you've got your feed of the individual results here, and then you've got your filters on the left. And all of these are scrunched nicely in the mobile app as well. I really want to highlight one of the most core things that makes Yelp stand out to me here, and something that a lot of other businesses haven't done a particularly good job of. I'm especially thinking about like Microsoft, Google, Facebook. One of the core things that I think they are doing wrong, and they're big enough to do it, but they're leaving an opening for future businesses to get in, is their fundamental products don't really work. Like they do a lot. They do a lot of things, obviously very powerful, very popular, very successful. But if you look at the core mechanics of how the software works, as consumers, we've kind of gotten used to things just not working. Like stuff breaks, weird new releases come out and we don't know how they work, or they're released wrong, or things are merged and bought and pulled all together and it just doesn't make any sense. Like just tonight, I was trying to share a post that my wife put up on Facebook, and the share button had turned into a send in WhatsApp button, which brand new, we'll figure it out. But like that kind of surprise release overnight pops out on a massive platform like those is an example of things generally not working the way you expect them to. Yelp works the way you expect it to, basically every single time. I've never once had the app not work. I've never had the website not work. I'm sure there have been other times where they don't, but that core fundamental product does what it's supposed to do every time. And that's one of the core pieces of being such a stable company without having to branch out broadly to doing other things, because they already are national in the United States. I believe they also extend to North America and have at some time expanded internationally as well. Like this is, and again, very simple, stuck to their niche, and the thing works. And that is a undervalued quality of any startup, especially software startups. But let's take a look at this screen. So you've got the map, you've got the feed here. One of the core things about Yelp is how they make their money, and that is with sponsored search results right here. So I've got my sponsored result that's kind of blended into the other results here. Actually, I believe all, yeah, there we go. These are all the sponsored results, and these are both a mix of large chains, Black Bear being a larger chain, and then some local stuff. Now, this is the core source of Yelp's revenue, is selling ads. But there are a couple things about that where selling ads is something that every company does. But Yelp has some really significant advantages as a company and as a platform and as how they work. And that is that these ads are local. These ads are high value because they come up for related search terms for motivated buyers in the area. Or if I'm looking for breakfast near me, I'm looking to go spend money to buy breakfast. So if you're paying to come up under a search for breakfast in this specific area, this is a really high quality ad. I'm not saying, hey, you know what, it's 4 p.m. on a Sunday, you're probably taking a nap in the sun. How about a breakfast joint? No, this is a targeted ad to a specific searcher in a specific place at a specific time when they are most likely to buy. This is a phenomenal, for lack of a better word, fidelity. Like these are the highest class of ads you could possibly get. And that's one of the things that makes Yelp so exceptional, is that advertising. And that's how the company's been able to do as well as it has with more or less one key source of revenue. That's basically it. And we'll talk a little bit more about some other supplemental things, but I believe, and if I looked here recently, it's more than 90%. It's at least 80%, but I believe it's more than 90% of Yelp's total revenue comes from these ads. And because they're local, because they're targeted, they've got a basically infinite space where they could put these ads. So you could sell ads for auto shops, for stores, for grocery stores, for any subclass of restaurant, for dog groomers, any kind of local small business, any kind of physical location business. There's so much ad space you could pack in there, whereas compared to like a billboard, it's like this is one thing in this one place that may or may not apply at any given time. This is a absolute peak gold standard of digital advertising, what Yelp has done, and that is ah exceptional. And that's another reason I really wanted to talk about it, is that revenue model is as close to perfect as you're going to get in a kind of a software company here, because it's diverse, it's distributed, it's high value, it's high needs based, and the opportunities for advertisers are incredibly high. Like, you're going to get motivated buyers basically constantly. Like, it's I could talk all day about that part alone. I wanted to make sure to highlight it, but we'll keep moving on. Another couple things here in that article I looked at, I just really leaned on the value of these ads, but these only work if people are looking at them, if people are coming to the platform, if people are using the search, if people are going there for this. Otherwise, it's not going to work. If you don't have users, if you don't have businesses, if you don't have people advertising, the whole thing falls apart. And that's where one of the more brilliant things that Yelp has done is to make this social. So, excuse me, there are two parts. So, is to make this social so that reviewers are writing reviews, sharing reviews, talking about reviews, checking in on Yelp, and following each other on Yelp. So it is actually a low-key social network. It's a legit social network with a very specific focus. And that encourages more users to get on. More users increases the value of the ads. More advertisers increases the quality of the ads. And then more reviews increases kind of the effectiveness of the ads too. So you can see you've got the star ratings here for anything that comes up. Even if someone pays to advertise, it doesn't necessarily hide their star review. So it could be like a McDonald's joint that has a 2-star review, but they still come up in the ads. And depending on how much people actually rate those reviews, that may or may not make a difference. But so that combination of getting businesses on Yelp, getting users on Yelp, getting them to stay on Yelp long term is all sort of the magic formula that Yelp needed to figure out. How do you get people on the platform? How do you keep people on the platform? How do you make this valuable for everyone involved to give it a minimum number of businesses, quality business listings, reviews, reliable reviews, and then just generally helpful reviews? So, like, if I'm looking for outdoor seating, I need to make sure that every business in the area, or at least enough of them on some level, have business pages that are filled out, have people talking about the outdoor seating, have something that will trigger from the search for me to find outdoor seating. Let's go ahead and find that. An example. So if I'm looking for a specific subset of businesses, I want to sit outside. I want to go sit outside and enjoy a beautiful weather day. I want to eat my lunch and, watch the river flow by gently. Like, this kind of helpfulness. If I'm looking for something specific, a specific subset of something I'm looking for, it's here. And you can do the open now. Not much open right now. Outdoor seating open now. Oh, there we go. It's cold right now and dark, and it's not closes in 40 minutes. All right, yes, because it's a ungentlemanly hour of the evening. Um, but yeah, so all of that really goes to the value of Yelp and what keeps people going in. But let's talk a little bit more about the social aspect. I'm going to show off my own page here just as a demonstrative account or demonstration here. Wow, that's a new one. I got thanks. So talked about the social network bit. There are emojis, and I went to this as a user, as a very experienced user who knows what's going on here, and I immediately was drawn to the emojis to be like, why do I have 1,000 helpful but only 9 thanks? And yeah, so it's pretty cool to see. And there's that reward bit, there's that dopamine bit that you get from social media. Where like, oh, I've written 8. Oh no, people have looked at 800 of my, or there have been 800 views of my reviews in the past 90 days, 10,000 looks at my photos. Here's my own summary here, so I can see my own rating distribution. And this is actually a pretty solid summary of the overall rating of Yelp itself. I've written enough reviews in enough different places with enough kind of star ratings that's more or less what you see. I'm pretty generous with the 5s. You could probably flip the 5s and the 3s, but one of the core, this is a total tangent, but one of the core complaints about Yelp is that it opens businesses up to negative reviews, which is true. You're putting yourself out there. You're putting yourself in a spot where some anonymous person could be like, your business is terrible, give me free breadsticks. But what I was taught in training, and one of the core pieces of Yelp, is that 70% of reviews on Yelp are positive. Because when you actually put stuff out there, when you get a high enough volume of reviews, the majority of people want to say good things, which is great, which is not, that is an unusual subset of the internet that has that kind of outcome. So it's too negative. Moving on. But yeah, so there's this social aspect of this where I've got friends, I've got reviews. Let's see. Or my friends list. So I have friends. I'm not going to do into that because then I'll be sharing too much of my individual friends. And I don't need to share too much about anyone except me. I haven't done many reviews recently. It's been a while, but I have written quite a few in the past. Let's see if I've got my reviews. Will it let me see all my reviews? Ooh, no, that's too much. There we go, reviews. And on the subject of things just working, I will say that this has changed a little bit. So the format's changed, the color's changed a bit. So it is actually somewhat more difficult for me to navigate this than it used to be because it's unfamiliar. But it still was pretty quick. You saw my confusion be pretty brief and then get to where I needed to go. So even with the shuffling and changing, it is significantly easier to navigate this than a lot of other sites. And that ease of access, that ease of use is really important to bringing people back. If you have obstacles in your platform, if you have things in your design that will push people away, that people remember, like, oh yeah, it was really hard to find that thing. Oh, it took forever to do that thing. They're not likely to come back. So make it easy, make it quick, include prompts to drive people to it. And they actually do this. Let me see, actually. If I go ahead and write a review, yeah, there we go. Again, a little confusion, but if I go ahead and write a review, let's see for, oh, where was I recently? I went to a place recently. It was really good. I wanted to write a review. I don't remember where it was, but we'll go again to one of my favorite places. Oh yeah, wonderful. So if I go here and I start writing a review, it says start a review. This is my review. I think this place is terrific. Aha, see right here? You get those helpful prompts that are fun, engaging, that say like, you know what, this is good, but you can keep going. You should probably say more than that. And it gives you prompts to encourage you to write a quality review, which all feeds back to is a really fun thing and makes me enjoy writing these, but also feeds back to that business model of making sure that you're encouraging people in a subtle, soft way that is fun to write quality reviews, quality, honest reviews, some extra details, things that will help you bring out the best of the business, both bring out the best of your writing and reviews, the most interesting and informative and helpful reviews, and also will just improve the quality of the platform overall. Really good. I'm going to duck out of this bad boy. And I could have just gone to our profile. There we go. We'll go back to that. But let's go ahead and look at reviews. And of course, we've talked about the reviews. This is that social aspect. This is one of those brilliant things that Yelp has done. So you've got the upvotes on each other. I will go ahead and look at my friends list because this is public. This is Yelp. Nobody's hiding anything on here. There's no password protection or anything. Let's look at one of my top of the line friends, one of the folks that does a lot. Ooh, Elite in 2025. Good job, John. Nice. Elite for 9 years. Good job, dude. And even then, right there's that Elite badge. I see that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, good job, buddy. So there's that social bit, that positive bit, really good stuff going on. And then I can look at his reviews and say, oh, yeah, this is great. Love it. It's helpful, too. Looks delicious. It does look delicious. Man, I'm hungry. Okay. But so that social aspect really keeps people coming back, keeps people engaged. And there's more to this than you see on the platform, too. So Yelp Elite, one of the core pieces of the business model of Yelp is that local space, the quality of those local ads, the importance of the value of the platform for local businesses, making sure that local businesses know about it, know how to use it, that users know how to get there, that they know how to use it. You can't just put up the web platform and expect people to do that well. A lot of software companies have, and it's worked out. But where Yelp really shines, where they reinforce this and build on itself and everything kind of meshes back together, is they have community managers. They have people in specific metros, especially the larger metros, whose role is to go around, introduce themselves to local businesses, talk to them about Yelp, get them to use the free Yelp for Business tools. And I don't know if this is going to let me see it. I can't see it here, but these community managers, what they do, actually, I got to do the thing again. I got to do it. Apologies, keep getting myself stuck. A lot of what they do is build up that local community. So I was a community ambassador, which was it's a smaller metro here. So I was a part-time early version of a community manager where I was building up that community to see if the community could get big enough to be a full-on community manager, which it might at some point. I don't know. But you go ahead and look at reviews and you encourage, you add comments, you say, hey, this is really good. But when you add let's see, and actually I don't think I'm able to add comments anymore. Because it used to be when you added an emoji like that, you could then add a note on the review. Send message. There we go. So you can send messages on this, be like, hey, this review is really good. I would do things like, hey, do you have any pictures of your lunch? Like, hey, what was the best part? Is there outdoor seating? Ask questions about it as prompts, like encourage people to do a better review, say a little bit more, tell you some information about that they haven't necessarily said, but that they have and may want to share. You reach out to people, you do that, you talk to them, interact with them, and it's really, really fun. Everybody enjoys that engagement. Everybody likes being like, yeah, you know what, that outdoor seating was really nice. And that goes a really long way to getting people more engaged, more invested in their own writing, and then also encourages them to come back. And as you're doing that, the reviewers you're talking to get more active, they get more engaged, they're using the platform more. They talk to their friends about it because they'll be like, oh, wait a minute, I need to take a picture of this cocktail for my review later before I drink it, which is one of the more obnoxious parts about social media, but it's still in such a wholesome way here where it's not to post on your Instagram profile, it's to give a shout out to this business to be like, this was an amazing Mai Tai. I'm going to let everyone know about this and share it. And that's one of the things about this keeps coming back. As I was prepping for this, I was remembering my time in Yelp. It just feels so wholesome, which is a weird space to be in when you're talking about a social network and a software company. So that's one of the reasons I was especially excited to do this. But yes, so you're interacting with people, and as you interact with people, people interact with other people, they interact with businesses. They bring everyone back together to the platform to increase the value of this, just to make it a better space. It works, it's smooth, it's fun, it's interactive, it's good for users and reviewers, it's good for casual people reading reviews of businesses or shopping around, and it's really good for businesses too, because it gives them an opportunity. Actually, we got one. This is a perfect example. Um, it gives the business owner an opportunity to see those reviews, see what people are saying, if they choose to engage with them. So it's a rare case where you get a platform this interactive, this friendly, where you often have that community manager you can reach out to and be like, hey, I got this really good review, I got this really bad review. How should I respond to these in a productive way that will help both protect and support and grow my business? And I wish I could show this. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get into the business tools to go ahead and show this too. Because this is huge. There are a lot of free tools that you can have. If you get on Yelp, you claim your business, you can add photos, you can add descriptions, you can put a lot of information on there to draw people to it. So when you go back to that review page, say lunch, let's see if we can find an unclaimed business. Because looking at all these, they have some photos, they probably have been claimed, and they show that my friends have reviewed these places, which also is really cool. There's one right here. I'm not sure what happened there. There we go. Jeez. Okay, and so it may just have been loading and may not have seen it, but let's see, is this claimed? This may actually, yeah, okay, so it is claimed. So there's that there. But so this business was able to add their own highlight photos in addition to what users took. They were able to get some metrics on viewership, how many people actually visited, how many people made reservations, how many people used the contact information. You get a lot of market research interactive information that a lot of small and local businesses wouldn't otherwise get. Excuse me. And the base part of that is free. On Yelp, they want to encourage businesses to get on here and use it because the better the business postings are on Yelp, the better experience users will have. And then that feeds back. The better experience businesses will have, the better reviews will be. Everything builds on itself to just be better, which also makes it more valuable, but makes it a good service for all involved. Businesses benefit, users benefit, reviewers benefit. Everybody gets some enjoyment out of this. It's fun and it's productive. Wholesome. Good. Holistic, wholesome, same thing. Not necessarily, but in this case, they are the same thing. And this is just a really cool example of how all this feeds together. Now, I did mention I was going to talk about some additional revenue sources. Yelp also does, they do have a paid business suite for larger businesses, for franchises, for just if you want more in-depth tools and want to pay to like get a little bit extra. They do have a paid version of that that's 10 to 20% of their total revenue. It pales in comparison to the amount of revenue they get on ads, but it's still a nice extra tool for your kind of larger businesses, your businesses that want to be more engaged and do more. It gives them the option to do more if they want to, but also still that Yelp for Business base version is free, which really is important because one of the key ways, and we're going to talk about some of the pitfalls that could have happened here, one of the key ways that Yelp could have really messed up is by charging for any of this. If Yelp Elite status cost money, if there was no recognition for being a Yelp Elite, if your basic business tools or claiming a business cost money, if there was a monthly fee to using the business tools, like all of those would have been revenue generators. And Yelp probably would have seen a bump in stock price and a bump in revenue immediately from doing that. They would also have seen a dip in user base and a dip in the quality of the product. They would have suffered for that in ways that long term would have built up and made things dramatically worse. And it would have been a slow downward spiral for the company instead of that steady curve we saw. So they have, again, stuck to the fundamentals, are doing well and being profitable and being a consistent company while leaving some money on the table potentially, but that money they're leaving on the table actually long term is revenue generating because it increases the quality of the actual product that they sell and guarantees they're going to sell more of that, and then everything kind of works out being a benefit. If you were to come into this from an executive suite approach and you're like, I want to make as much money as I can as quickly as I can, it would be extremely easy to break this. And that's another thing I really wanted to highlight because it works because of how it does the thing, the quality of the thing, that the consistency of the thing, the just general approachability of the thing, the business tools, the reviews, the social aspect, all of it is really easy for people to get into and enjoy and use in a very functional way, which is very profitable by itself. Now, you could nickel and dime this, but again, a lot of businesses do that, and it really hurts them. And especially in a case like Yelp, where again, they have that absolute golden local advertising. To do anything to chip away at that would be a terrible mistake. And it's a mistake that a lot of businesses have and would make. And that's another reason I wanted to highlight Yelp because they haven't. They really have not messed that up. They've kept to that core principle and it still works to this day, which is very cool. And now I have talked a little bit about Yelp Elite too. Hey, let's see. There's another tab just for that. I mentioned the community managers and the Yelp Elites. One thing the community managers do, oh, hello, is they recruit Yelp Elites. These are people who review a lot, take great photos, put up great content. Oh, that's a good, yeah, okay. And this is going to be a perfect segue here. And encourage them to become Yelp Elite. They have to meet a certain criteria. We have to maintain a certain activity, a number of reviews over a certain amount of time, quality of reviews, number of photos. Like you have to be active on the platform to get this. But if you do get it, you become Yelp Elite, and then you have the opportunity to go to the Yelp Elite events that the community managers host, which are free events hosted by local businesses that are they're an opportunity for that business to spend some marketing budget on some very high quality local promoters, like an early version of your influencers, your early version of your influencers, and really get them in the door, get them in there talking about the business, getting them to see it at a really cool, exciting, fun event, which is going to basically guarantee they're going to talk about it with their friends and then come back to the business. Yeah, so that's that local community building event. The majority of what your community managers do is really focused on users, the people, the everyday users who would use the site and keep coming back to it and keep it lively and vibrant, which has the passive effect of bringing businesses to it, but then also encourages businesses to really engage with these folks and just kind of bring them in. Now, there's another pitfall here that Yelp has done a really good job and been very careful about avoiding. If you have a free event, if people get their meals comped, if they go in and get all this stuff and have this unusually festive experience, Yelp has a strict policy where you can't write a review for the business based on getting free stuff. So if your meal is comped or you're sitting down with the owner for some like special private tour for some reason, you can't review the business because of that, or you're strongly discouraged from doing that because it's not an authentic review. It's not the experience that anybody walking in off the street is going to have at that business. So instead, they create a temporary business for the elite event, and the elite members who go to that event review the event itself, not the business. But they can add photos to the business. They can plan to come back to the business. They can talk to their friends about the business. There's a very clear line between, hey, here's the exciting event, and then here is the business. That again is a case where businesses are sometimes upset about, or could be upset about that. I haven't experienced that personally. Could be upset about that, like, hey, I did this event, why don't I get the reviews for it? And it's again is because those reviews would not be authentic. It would set up unreasonable expectations for your average visitors, and it would be a bad thing. So there's a very good reason that line is set. And so there's this really kind of cool marketing arm. Like Yelp's marketing is exceptional. Yelp's management of the social aspect of this is exceptional because they have to be very clear about that exact separation, and they are. This is, I could gush about this all day, but it's one of those cases where my expertise is in customer success, customer client success. And a lot of that is just the very simple being accessible, being communicative, and being there when your customers need you. Now, most of the time I've been remote and covered a very broad range, but your community managers are local. There's somebody where you could call them and they could come by and sit down and have lunch with you and talk about an event, talk about some concern of yours. They can help you really get the most out of your community and your business and your other friends and community members. They are a part of your community. They are there. They are shoppers. They are patroning your. I don't want to say patronizing, but I guess it is patronizing your business. Um, and that's a huge part of Yelp's like customer value, and again leads into that influencer aspect. And Yelp was one of the first companies that really embraced that, and to this day one of the companies that's done it the best because of the market niche they're in, because of the how much fun it is, the way it works, the whole design about this allows them to have that incredible customer interaction in a way that is again sustainable and profitable. Awesome. Like, again, a really cool example of a business to be able to highlight. I'm very glad it's been successful and very glad it's managed to keep this fundamental approach basically unchanged. Um, yeah, so this is it. So you're Yelp Elite, you meet your criteria, you become Yelp Elite, get to go to all the events, you make a bunch of other elite friends, you interact with them a lot, you meet a bunch of business owners. It's a very cool way to get a very in-depth, really fun, satisfying, exciting look at your local community and the businesses in it. It makes that human connection between shoppers, reviewers, and business owners, which is huge because it would be really easy to yell at each other on the internet. But once you get that human approach, it not only builds a relationship with those reviewers and those businesses, but gives you a different perspective when you look at other businesses and other reviewers. So it improves your attitude of everybody involved, even if they're not the specific people you interacted with. We're getting a little fuzzy wuzzy. Another cool thing about this and a way it kind of keeps people engaged is if you travel out of town, that's one of the times you're going to use Yelp the most because you don't know the area as much. And that also is an opportunity to meet the local community manager if you're a traveling Yelp Elite, and meet the local elite members if you are a traveling Yelp Elite. So it gives you kind of this set social network in any metro you go to within the United States and greater North America. And that's cool. So that's it. I've talked a whole lot. I've got one more little bit here. There has been some noise about, obviously, this is, there are shareholders involved, there are still investors involved. There are people who want higher profits. They don't want stable profits, they want consistent problems, they want spiking profits. They want a bunch very quickly. Um, and we're talking about a $3 billion, $2.9 billion company here that is routinely profitable. It's wild. So I don't want to end on a downer. I should have ended on the last point and done this first, but it is one of those cases where this has a very stable, consistent model and has for 21 years. I want to emphasize that point again. It's pretty incredible what they've accomplished over a really long span of time with a shocking level of consistency, especially starting out as a little tiny startup. Um, and there's this problematic bit that startups often run into where explosive growth is the rule. If you're not having explosive growth, if you're not at a rocketing upward potential, then it's meaningless and you haven't accomplished anything. Um, but yeah, so that is another reason why I appreciate Yelp. And it's something that I want more startups to kind of consider is your goal isn't necessarily the spiking profits. Your goal is to make a great product, solve a problem, be there long term, maybe sell it, maybe move out, whatever. But the goal is to have this business that you built be this long-term consistent engine that keeps doing the thing and kind of keeps the soul of what it was supposed to do from the start long term. That is my personal view. That's my approach. I do think there's definitely a note to make here. I'm gonna go ahead and make it here because this is the first of my series, and I intend to be the first that's going to lead into the other episodes as well. But I've touched on several times there, and we'll go ahead and change out of that. I've touched several times on the, yeah, we'll go ahead and keep this up, difference between Yelp fundamentals and a lot of the other big tech giants like Google and Facebook being the two easiest to pick on. Um, Salesforce, a lot of these companies have gone to a very heavy cost cutting, savings, coast on our current features approach that leaves all kinds of opportunities for disruptive startups to come in and pick apart their features. Where there could be a startup that disrupts Google Maps, there could be a startup that disrupts Gmail. There are opportunities here for people to take their core fundamental products, chip away at their profits, and make these giants eventually start to fall apart. And that's because they're neglecting their fundamentals. They've gone to this bit where they're so focused on over the top profits where they're neglecting the actual product and the problems it's supposed to solve and the user is supposed to serve. So the purpose of the entire thing is being flipped on its head, and that is a little bit sad, especially to see a company like Google, which I had a very positive opinion of for a really long time, start to get a little bit kind of manipulative and abusive, which in some level it sure, whatever it was. But right now I'm getting hounded basically every day by Google for storage space, saying like you need to pay to get more storage space for your photos and emails. Well, at the same time, there have been software changes where like the search of my Gmail inbox basically doesn't work anymore. There was some change to the search algorithm in the last couple of years, so I can't find messages from this week with a specific keyword, even if I use that exact keyword. Likewise, photos. They changed how the photo search works in Google Photos, and it's not very good. It doesn't do at all what it used to do and makes it actually very challenging to find the photos I'm looking for. I don't know where the breakpoint is, but at some point, these software platforms are starting to fall apart, and there's a huge opportunity for smaller, nimble companies to come in and do a better product and be successful long term, just doing the thing that it's supposed to do, make it work, um, use the same profit model that those tools did, and just do the thing right and don't let it slowly crumble into the ground. And so that's both a little bit sad to see the giants sort of fall apart, very exciting from a startup perspective, seeing what is potentially could be happening here. You can actually challenge one of the giants and just make a better product and be the interactive kind of style that Yelp is, and you have a huge opportunity here that's just being neglected by the companies that hold it right now. They have this massive market share. They take that for granted. We're seeing that right now live with the kind of meteoric growth of Blue Sky. That's a very interesting thing to watch. So I personally am very, very excited as somebody very interested in startups to see what happens next, to see where these disruptive things happen and where the crown is rightly trimmed a little bit from some of the big players that have neglected their fundamentals a bit. So we'll leave on that point. I'm really excited for the rest of the series. This, of course, was the sterling case of the successful long-term stable startup. The other ones I'm going through will be a little bit more up and down. Some of them have had some ups and downs. Some are fairly new, and at least one has outright failed. And I want to make sure to highlight that so we get the full spectrum of the entire experience. So there we go. I'll leave it there. Appreciate the time. And because I am launching my own business as part of this series, I will leave you with the statement, go with confidence, go bolder.